I was at Toronto Film Festival, and I'm still got a lot of movies to talk about, and I'm talking about them from worst to best. Let's keep going. One of the films I saw was a Taiwanese zombie film called Get the Hell Out. This film is very cheesy and for the most part pretty self-aware. It's very silly and there's lots of blood and gore. There's an evil, laughing, rich villain who is very over the top. Some of the editing choices in this movie remind me of a Neville Dean and Taylor film. There's also a lot of memes in this movie. Like, there's just straight up memes in the movie. Like, in the middle of the movie, they do the whole JoJo to be continued thing. At some points it's amusing, and at other points it's kind of cringe. It definitely walks a fine line between funny and hello fellow kids. Once the zombie action starts, it's a lot of fun. It obviously doesn't take itself too seriously, and the action sequences feel very Trauma-esque. This film has some satisfying gags and sequences, but unfortunately the novelty does wear off after a while. Eventually the film feels a bit stale and repetitive, and I think what would have alleviated this is if there was a more clearly defined plot and goals. This movie doesn't really have a great story, and I can't even really remember what it was. There was a political angle, and the MPs were planning to turn people into idiots, something along those lines, but yeah, it wasn't super clearly defined. Anyway, this movie was fine. I do not regret watching it, and I did definitely have fun at parts. So if this looks interesting to you, then check it out. And I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Another film I saw was Nomadland, starring Frances McDormand. This is a film about an aging woman who is financially struggling after losing everything in the Great Recession, and because of her circumstances, she lives in her van. Now, this film starts out pretty strong with an interesting setup. Frances McDormand is also great as always. There's a lot of character in this film, and it feels very natural and genuine. The characters and setting are both very believable. It's also a nice-looking film that is generally well shot, but the biggest reason why I wasn't able to love this film by the end of it is because they didn't really do anything with this setup. It's got a really great foundation to tell a story from, but the movie was just all foundation and no story. Like, I get that it's supposed to be kind of a slice-of-life type thing, but with a 2-hour runtime, I found myself losing interest and not really caring about the characters. The whole thing starts to feel incredibly stagnant and purposeless. The main character never changes or goes through any kind of an arc. I really love what they set up, I just wish that they did something with it. By the end of the movie, it feels like nothing really happened at all. And it wasn't like some masterful film where I could just chew on the technical elements instead. It was just mostly empty. And what also really didn't help the film was how sappy and insistent the music was. It was a lot of basic piano that felt formulated and simplistic. There are some moments where it felt appropriately used, but mostly it was just cheesy and distracting. I really wanted to love this film, and I was really looking forward to it. I really loved the setup and foundation for the movie, but that alone does not make up for the film not going anywhere, regardless of how sappy and insistent the piano music is. Anyway, check this one out if you want. Apparently a lot of people really love this movie. As for me, I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Another film I saw was a documentary called MLK FBI. This film is about how Martin Luther King Jr. was surveilled and harassed by the US government. This documentary has good music and tone. It also provides some good historical context towards the information it's presenting. It is a pretty solid documentary that is unfortunately just too long for what it is. At points it's certainly interesting, but overall I feel as though the information definitely should have been condensed. It's also a strange choice that the faces and credentials of the interviewees were only shown at the very end of the film. It might have helped the experience to have that information as the film was happening, but for some reason it's just at the end. Anyway, this was definitely a well-made documentary overall, and despite it not being super engaging the entire movie, it was still worth watching. And I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Stay tuned for more TIFF Quickies and then some VIF Quickies. I got a billion movies to talk about. Yeah, I'm working on the Lion King thing. It'll be out when it's ready. You know the drill. Bye-bye.